All right, let's dig into a really powerful idea that shapes so much of our world, from how we feel at work to how countries deal with each other. It's called zero-sum thinking. You know that little voice in our head that tells us the pie is only so big? We're about to figure out why that voice is there. You know that feeling, right? Maybe a coworker gets a promotion, and for a split second you think, shoot, there's one less spot for me. Or you're buying a car and you feel like every single dollar you save is a dollar yanked right out of the dealer's pocket. It's such a common human gut reaction. Well, that feeling, it actually has a name. It's what psychologists call the zero-sum trap. And it's basically a mental shortcut our brains take, where we just assume that for someone to get a bigger slice of the pie, our slice has to get smaller, even when that's not remotely true.
So let's put a real definition on this. What are we actually talking about when we say your gain is my loss? Where does this whole idea come from?
At its absolute core, it's a mindset. And the key word there is subjective. This isn't about reality. It's about our perception of reality. It's when we look at a situation and just automatically frame it as a win-lose competition. Now, researchers have this, very academic way of putting it. They call it a belief system about the antagonistic nature of social relations. I know, it's a mouthful. But all it really means is that it's a worldview where you walk in assuming that life is just one big fight over a limited pile of stuff. And this is probably the most important distinction we need to make. Zero-sum thinking is not the same thing as a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game is a real thing from math and game theory. Think of a poker game, right? The money in the pot is fixed. For me to win $100, someone else at that table has to lose $100. But zero-sum thinking, that's when we apply that same poker logic to things where the pie isn't fixed at all. Things like knowledge or creativity or happiness. And here's the thing. Once you have a name for it, you start seeing this trap absolutely everywhere. Let's just look at a few ways it's woven into our lives. It's right there in the classroom when a teacher grades on a curve, suddenly making your friend's A feel like a threat to your own. It can totally poison business deals, stopping people from finding win-win solutions because they assume any gain for the other side must be a loss for them. We see it in big debates too, like the idea that immigrants take jobs from a fixed pool, or that every illegally downloaded movie is a directly lost sale. It's even buried in old sayings like jack of all trades, master of none, which kind of assumes our ability to learn is a finite resource. So if this way of thinking is so often wrong, and frankly unhelpful, why is it so ridiculously common? Well, the answer might be buried deep, deep in our evolutionary past. The big theory here is that zero-sum thinking is kind of a psychological fossil. It's like our brains are running on software that was perfectly designed for the world of our ancestors, but it's a little buggy in the world we live in today. Think about it. For most of human history, this wasn't a bias. It was just reality. Resources like food, safe territory, and mates were genuinely limited. If one hunter got the kill, another's family might go hungry. In that world, seeing life as a zero-sum game wasn't pessimistic. It was a critical survival tool. Our brains got hardwired to see a fixed pie because for thousands and thousands of years, that's what the world looked like. But evolution is only half the story. It's not just our ancient wiring. The world we're born into today can either challenge that wiring or reinforce it. Way back in 1965, an anthropologist named George Foster noticed this when he was studying peasant societies. He came up with this idea called the image of limited good. He basically argued that when you grow up in a world where good things, land, wealth, opportunities, really are scarce, you learn to see the whole world that way. It becomes a learned worldview, taught by your environment. And what's wild is that modern research totally backs this up on a global scale. A huge study across 37 different nations found this incredibly clear link. People in countries with lower national wealth, where scarcity is more of a daily reality, are way more likely to hold these zero-sum beliefs. It seems our environment is still a powerful teacher. Okay, so we know what it is, we see it everywhere, and we have a good idea of why it's there. But why does this actually matter? Well, it matters because this mindset doesn't just stay in our heads. It leaks out and changes how we act, and in doing so, it shapes our reality. When we believe the world works a certain way, we act accordingly. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If students truly believe grades are a scarce resource,
Why would they help each other study? If people are convinced jobs are a fixed pie, they're much more likely to have negative feelings about immigration. It even affects our personal lives. Research shows that people who see love as a finite thing are more likely to hold prejudices against non-monogamous relationships. The belief creates the competition.
And that really brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. While this might be our brain's default setting, zero-sum thinking is just a perspective. It's not a law of physics. It's like a pair of glasses that we don't even realize we're wearing. And once we realize they're on, we have the choice to take them off. Because the world we live in today is full of chances, not just to slice up the existing pie, but to work together and bake a much, much bigger one.
So the final question is really for you. Now that you can spot this ancient programming kicking in, where can you push back against it? At your job, in your family, in your community? Where have you been accidentally fighting over a slice when maybe, just maybe, you could be working with someone to make the whole pie bigger for everyone?